This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The death toll rises in the deadliest attack by militants in Burkina Faso. Senegal spearheads Africa's ambition to manufacture its own COVID-19 vaccines. And we look at efforts to protect the environment and keep the effects of climate change at bay across the continent. Welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also ahead on the program, Ethiopia seeks to shore up its energy resources with 100 more dams in coming years. And Kenya's tourism sector ready to reap from June's World Rally Championships Safari Rally. At least 160 people have reportedly been killed by armed men in northern Burkina Faso. The attackers raided a village Friday night near the border with Niger, setting fires and killing dozens of people. The African nation has declared 72 hours of mourning. The government described the attackers as terrorists, but no one has claimed responsibility as yet. The United Nations Secretary General strongly condemned the attack and expressed his condolences to the victims' families. Residents in the capital, Ouagadougou, are calling on the government to take action and stop such attacks from happening again.
There is medicine for COVID-19, but these attacks, how are we going to deal with terrorism? There is no medicine for terrorism.
It is with a lot of sadness that we speak of this event because this massacre is the biggest massacre that has taken place in the country's history. This is the first time that there have been so many deaths at the same time in a single operation, and above all, so many civilian deaths. The Burkinabe population is very sad at the moment. Questions about the ability of the country and the defense and security system to stem the terrorist insurgency are growing.
Meanwhile, authorities in Nigeria are stepping up efforts to secure the release of more than 130 students abducted last week in the north-central state of Niger. More than 800 students have been abducted in the north of the country since December. CGTN's Deji Badmos now reports.
Authorities of Niger State say efforts are on to secure the release of the 136 students, but they are not disclosing much on what has been done to free them. The bandits had demanded $242,000 as ransom to free the students, but the government says it doesn't pay ransom. The bandits have threatened to kill the children if the ransom is not paid. Security experts say this is one abduction that should not have happened in the first place.
The timing of this adoption brought daylight, and this particular community is not isolated communities like the other previous ones. This is a place that is semi-developed, and so a lot of activities. One would have expected some interception even before the act was committed. But once the act was committed, once the children are in the custody of these adoptees, the adopters, definitely you know that even though if security agencies are closing on them, they may not use force because of the collateral damage that it may cause.
The head teacher of the Islamic school says more than 100 of the pupils being held hostage are between the ages of 4 and 5. The spate of mass abductions across the country has got many people disturbed.
The question is, how did we get here? And where are we heading to? It's a question that is very difficult to answer, but I will try to put it at the doorstep of the leadership. I feel the government also is overwhelmed. They have no solution to it.
People are no longer safe. You know, it's the primary responsibility of every government to ensure that lives and properties are safe. So for this thing to happen like this, to me something is wrong somewhere. Because banditries or terrorists or whatever they call them cannot be greater than governments.
Security experts have applauded the decision of the government not to negotiate or pay ransom to bandits. But many say it shouldn't end there.
I know parents are worried. And as these parents are worried, what the government should do is also to form a kind of body that will be in touch with the parents and be talking with them. There might be collateral damage. We don't pray for that. But, you know, well-trained hostage rescuers, either from the police, because they've recently trained their SWAT, and then, of course, from the military, the special forces, we should be able to get those people out.
For now, the government is keeping its actions over the abduction close to its chest. It says it is doing everything to ensure the children are freed without harm. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan has granted permission to embassies and international organizations in the country to import COVID-19 vaccines for their citizens and employees. The president made the statement in the capital, Dodoma, after she received a proposed work plan from a special committee on COVID-19. CGTN's Isaac Lukando has more details.
Workers at embassies and international organizations in Tanzania could soon be vaccinated against COVID-19. The country's president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, says the aim is to help them comply with the requirements of their respective countries and organizations. Since the exercise will be supervised by the government, she now wants her cabinet to give the final nod.
The Ministry of Health should write a formal document for the cabinet because we must now get approval from the entire government. I ask that the committee be present to make a presentation to the cabinet so that questions are asked and so that at the end of the day, the entire government agrees that this is the way forward.
President Samia formed a COVID-19 committee in April this year to assess the pandemic situation in the country and provide science-based solutions. After several weeks of work, the committee says it has come up with 19 recommendations and a work plan to go with them.
Essentially, for every recommendation, we have laid out a corresponding activity, its costs, those responsible, and the time frame for execution. The committee has also gone through and improved on the national plan to fight against COVID-19.
In its recommendations, the committee has proposed ways to secure funding to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, including securing medical equipment, training, and vaccines. However, details of when the vaccine will arrive or how they will be distributed have not been made clear. Tanzania's previous administration refused to import COVID-19 vaccines, citing doubts over their safety. Isaac Lukando, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
Meanwhile, Senegal could begin producing COVID-19 vaccines next year under an agreement with Belgium's Universals. The move is aimed at boosting Africa's drug manufacturing ambitions. In April, a biotech firm Universals announced the signing of a letter of intent for collaboration with the Institut Pasteur in Dakar. Under the agreement, the Institut Pasteur would use vaccine production technology developed by Universals to manufacture and supply COVID-19 vaccine doses to countries across West Africa. Now, as wealthy countries begin to reopen after securing vaccine supplies early, African nations are still struggling to acquire the critical vaccines. About 7 million people have been fully vaccinated around the continent. The Chinese embassy in Zambia has donated anti-epidemic materials to the University of Zambia. The donation will help the teachers and students strengthen their prevention and control protocols against COVID-19. According to the Chinese ambassador to Zambia, Li Jie, the donation shows China's commitment to supporting the university to combat the pandemic with the ongoing third wave reported in the country. The university's Vice-Chancellor, Luke Mumba, has deeply commended China for the donation, saying it will go a long way in helping protect the university community and control the spread of the pandemic among students and staff members.
So we like to protect our staff and students. So this donation really from the People's Republic of China has come very, very timely, and we are so grateful. We are a huge university of about 30,000 students. So on our own, it's a challenge to meet the Ministry of Health measures or guidelines against COVID-19. So we need partners such as China, like they have done today, to come to our aid. So we are very, very grateful.
You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program. We will look at efforts to protect the environment and keep the effects of climate change at bay across the continent. And Ethiopia seeks to show up its energy resources with 100 more dams in coming years.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Nature lovers in Senegal have been joining hands to help restore the forest cover in the capital, Dakar. So far, 4,500 trees have been planted. Here is CGTN's Wanja Mungai with more.
In Senegal's capital of Dakar, representatives from the government and non-governmental organizations have been getting their hands on the ground, literally. Joined by environmental activists, they are determined to transform their city into a green zone through tree planting.
The only tree that doesn't grow is the one that hasn't been planted. Here, there will be 1,000 trees in this enchanting environment in front of the Atlantic Ocean, and students and residents will be able to come and rest in the shade of these beautiful trees and pick fruits that they will eat. This will create an ecosystem that I hope will make other neighborhoods jealous, and together we will succeed in making our capital Dakar a green city.
The initiative is part of the Green Wall project launched by the African Union in 2007. It aims to restore degraded landscapes along the Sahel region. The Great Green Wall spans 8,000 kilometers, covering more than 20 African nations. It starts here in Senegal and stretches all the way to Djibouti. Member states are required to cooperate in the implementation of the project. In Senegal, other partners, including international and local ones, have joined this initiative. Member states are required to cooperate in the implementation of the project. In Senegal, other partners, including international and local ones, have joined the initiative.
Today we are going to plant 300 trees. This will give a real natural filter to the air and allow us to breathe better.
According to a United Nations report released in 2020, the continent lost about 4 million hectares of tree per year between 2010 and 2020. The global body warns that the degradation rate is increasing.
We really need to reflect on the issue of trees. The very fact of seeing the greenery does us good. We have taught our young people to plant trees because it is vital. These young people must be at the front of this action because it will benefit them in the future.
Senegal is seeking to set the pace for the rest of the continent in reclaiming lost ecosystems. Wanja Mungai, CGTN.
Well, after nearly 15 years of trying to build a wall of vegetation across the Sahel region in Africa, little has changed, according to the United Nations. The aim of the project, called Great Green Wall, is to tackle climate change by planting an 8,000-kilometer stretch of vegetation in the Sahel region. The region experiences droughts every 2 years instead of a typical 10-year cycle, and many of the inhabitants there, including Nigerians, have been affected by high unemployment rates and food shortages. CGTN's Philly Haza reports from Abuja.
These environmental activists have gathered from different parts of Abuja to lay one tree seedling after another into the ground. They say tree planting has become more important than ever in this part of Africa.
I'm very excited to do this because ordinarily I consider myself a climate change and global warming advocate, and I feel it's very important for citizens to partake in planting of trees and ways to reduce our carbon footprint on the environment.
The trees, they serve as food source, a source of building materials, our beds, our doors, everything, trees. and even our pharmaceutical industries.
The tree planting is part of the Great Green Wall Project, an African-led initiative aimed at preventing land degradation and desertification. The goal is to plant trees from one end of the Sahel in Senegal to another in Djibouti, cutting across Nigeria. The initiative, which kicked off in 2007, has only achieved about 16% of its goal of planting at least 100 million hectares as of February 2021. The United Nations says to reach the goal in 2030, the countries involved need to restore an average of 8.2 million hectares of land every year. Nigeria has restored only 4.9 million hectares in its second decade.
It's really sad because this is an initiative that actually emanated from Nigeria and then adopted by the African Union and got support from the United Nations. So what this tells you is there's lack of political will, but corruption also plays a big role. As much as it's an African initiative and an African problem, it must be a global solution where we can mobilize resources from global north, global south, come together, get money from multilaterals and our international partners.
This year, $14 billion out of the needed $33 billion has been pledged by partners including the African Development Bank and World Bank for the wall over the next 5 years.
But this money is not enough. How are we ensuring that we can also mobilize locally, where our country government can put money in budget appropriation, where state authorities can also match these resources? But most importantly, we must see greater fiscal accountability.
The Nigerian government has instituted a national agency for the Great Green Wall with a mandate to manage and help implement the project. It says so far, nearly 8 million trees have been produced, more than 1,200 Nigerians have been trained on food security and managing biodiversity, and about 1,400 jobs have been created through the project.
With additional funding for the Great Green Wall and people here encouraged to adopt a culture of tree planting, millions living on the front line of climate change in Nigeria and the entire Sahel region could have their lives transformed. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
Meanwhile, Nigerian researchers are developing a data-driven solution for West African coasts that are facing environmental degradation. Their solution could provide early warnings for coastal communities battling the effect of climate change. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam has more on that report.
Flash floods sweeping through communities along the coastal region, eroding houses and farmlands. One of the many results of decades of coastal degradation. For the West African region, the high economic potential in coastal areas is being eroded too.
According to an analysis by the World Bank, the degradation of the coast of Benin, Côte d'Ivoire, Senegal, and Togo cost about $3.8 billion in 2017 alone. That is about 5.5% of the total GDP of these countries. So you can see the enormous impact of coastal degradation.
The threats along West Africa's coastal areas spurred a group of researchers to seek possible interventions and solutions to the problems. The Enhancing Adaptation and Resilience Against Multi-Hazard Along West Africa's Coasts, or EAWAC project, first carried out an assessment on the needs and impact of climate change on the coastal areas.
The second phase of our intervention has to do with the developing dashboard, which will be some sort of one-stop shop for evidence-based information and also analysis of situations about the impact of climate change and other stressors on the West African coast.
The intervention would provide early warnings to help communities along the West African coastlines prepare better, coordinate responses, and manage risks more effectively.
We have a whole range of tools, of initiatives or solutions that we can bring aboard, ranging from fiscal solutions, policy solutions, and most importantly, nature-based solutions. We will also need to strengthen our capacity to observe different hazards, including flooding.
Oil spills, plastic pollution, industrialization, and population explosion are among the many issues that continue to threaten the West African waterways. The cumulative effect on the coastal ecosystem and the livelihood of the people has been dire. Researchers are calling for more government support to implement transformative policies towards salvaging the environment. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Ethiopian authorities have expressed determination to build 100 dams in the next few years to boost irrigation and hydroelectric power generation. Currently, Ethiopia is building Africa's largest hydroelectric dam on the Nile, which is now 80% complete. Here is CGTN's Girum Chala with more.
Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has outlined a plan of building at least 100 dams across the country. The new dams will be a priority area of development for Ethiopia in the next year or two.
Repeating the all-rounded successes we have registered last year, especially on health, education and road projects. Next year, the government's main plan is building small and medium dams in all regions.
Abiy said his nation must consider its water resource as the main gateway to achieving economic success and lifting citizens out of poverty.
If we do not seriously work on our water resource, if we do not start seeing water as our precious resource, and if we do not see it as our main gateway to development, we won't be able to achieve prosperity for this country. Therefore, the government's attention now will be diverted into building several small and medium dams. The main goal for this project is to enable us to produce food 3 times a year.
But some parties believe this plan would further diminish cross-border water resource. The spokesperson of the Ethiopian Ministry of Foreign Affairs says Ethiopia will deliver the projects while respecting international laws.
We have long-standing principles on resources. When it comes to cross-border rivers, we respect all the laws in this regard. We have all commitments to this. We respect international laws.
At the moment, Ethiopia is building what would be Africa's largest hydroelectric power generating dam on the Nile, named the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. This project of close to $5 billion is now more than 80% complete. Ethiopia is determined to finish GERD and generate power in few months despite an ever-mounting regional and international pressure. Grumtara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
You're watching Africa Live. Is still ahead on the program. Kenya's tourism sector ready to reap from June's World Rally Championships Safari Rally.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
We begin our sports segment in the Netherlands, where Ethiopian-born Dutch long-distance runner Sifan Hassan has broken the women's 10,000 meters world record, clocking 29 minutes and 6.82 seconds in a continental tour meeting in Hengelo.